Well, a very, very happy Monday morning to everyone, and welcome to the John Quintero Show on YouTube. Very nice that you could join me on an amazing day in the United States. I mean, there are so many things going on today. And first, uh, let's remember today we're honoring the great Dr. Martin Luther King. And this to me is a holiday that I always look forward to, and I'm going to tell you why. When I played junior college basketball, I played with a variety of different ethnicities, and it really brought me a new vision on what other people from other races go through. And I always look forward to Dr. Martin Luther King Day. It's a day where we can unite, uh, extend a hand to someone you maybe haven't extended a hand to before. And more than anything, just be nice to people. And when I had my radio show, I used to play his famous speech, I've got a dream. I used to end my show with that each and every night on Dr. Martin Luther King Day. I learned a lot in my career as a player, as a coach, and I grew up in a community where there were a lot of Hispanic Americans. And I've got a great love for the Mexican community. I've got a great love for the Black community. One of my greatest attributes in my life, I think, is being able to connect with people of all races. And, one thing about sports, folks, I think it brings you together. And you're always pulling the rope in the right direction. And I think more than anything else, that's what Dr. Martin Luther King preached. Let's pull the rope all together in the right direction. Let's get along and let's be unified. And today's a really special day, and I think we need to remember that. It also happens to be the day where the inauguration of our 47th president took place this morning. Donald J. Trump being installed as the 47th president of the United States, along with J.D. Vance, John David Vance, as the vice president. And then with all that, with Dr. Martin Luther King Day, the inauguration of our 47th president, and a new vice president, tonight we got the national championship game, which should be one hell of a game. Ohio State going against Notre Dame. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But today's an incredible day. A lot of things going on. I want to mention this before we get too far into the show, just because I know there are a lot of people in my listening audience who like to hit that little white ball. Remember, the Farmers Insurance Open is this week at Torrey Pines, and it starts on Wednesday. Remember, it starts on Wednesday and finishes up on Saturday. And the reason for that, and they did this a few years ago, and it worked really well, because it would take away from the AFC and NFC championship games that'll be played on Sunday. And the players like finishing the tournament up. They can get to wherever they need to be, and they can watch the games themselves. So remember, and there's no better place to watch golf than Torrey Pines. I can tell you that. Broadcasting there from all the years I did, and going to the event when I wasn't broadcasting, fantastic. They do a tremendous job. A lot of great volunteers out there, and it wouldn't be possible with without all the great volunteers. They got a ton of them out there. So enjoy this week at Torrey Pines again, Wednesday through Saturday. Okay, we're going to get into our program today. And I mentioned on Friday morning when we broadcast at 10 o'clock that Roki Sasaki had taken the Padres off his list. Well, later on in the afternoon, we found out Roki Sasaki not only took the Toronto Blue Jays off his list, he had already signed a minor league deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, we're going to really get into this today, and we're going to talk about the Dodgers. And I want your opinions. And Jonathan, who works with me, he'll put your stuff up on the board, and we'll answer each and every question today. But we've got a lot to dissect, because people now are saying that the Dodgers, they had a handshake agreement ahead of him being posted. Major League Baseball came out after the announcement. People were yelling and screaming. At the end of the day, Major League Baseball did an investigation before Sasaki was even posted and found no wrongdoing by the Dodgers or anybody else. So Sasaki, not a real shocker, was it? Wasn't a real shocker that he went to the Dodgers. But the Dodgers have so many things going on right now. I mean, realistically, take a look at this. The Dodgers have a lot to offer. And I don't care if you're a Padre fan, a Cubs fan, a Mets fan, the Dodgers have a lot to offer. They've got a championship caliber team. They won 98 games a year ago, and everybody in LA was going, what the hell's wrong with the Dodgers? Well, they motored through the playoffs. Aside from going down 1-2 to the Padres, they motored through the playoffs. They ran by the Mets, ran through the Yankees, and just, pulled off that world title. Padres, man, that still stings. That is always going to sting me that they blew a 2-1 series lead. But the Dodgers got a championship caliber team. They're the team of Japan. Now here's the deal. It's like when I grew up as a little kid in San Diego, Padres didn't come into existence till 1969. My favorite team was the Angels. And I can tell you right now, if the Padres didn't have a franchise in San Diego, and it was still AAA, I'd follow the AAA team, but I'd follow the Angels. The Angels were my team. Jim Fregosi, Bobby Knopp, that whole gang up there. That was my team. I went to a lot of games. My dad took me to a lot of Angel games. First Major League game I ever saw was an Angel game. But the Padres came into existence, and that's my team. Well, Roki Sasaki and all the kids over in Japan, they're watching Dodger games. All the games are on TV. The Dodgers have had a great history in Japan. Remember when they brought Hideo Nomo over? Who, by the way, works for the Padres now. But the Dodger games are on TV. They got every game Ohtani plays, the game's on TV. You got Yamamoto. Okay? So he grows up watching the Dodgers. In that beautiful white uniform that the Dodgers have worn forever and ever and ever. So you knew the Dodgers were the favorites. And then just a couple of other things. You got 2 Japanese players on the Dodger roster that are under long-term contract. They're not going anywhere. I mean, Ohtani will finish his career a Dodger. Yamamoto will be here forever. I mean, they're paying him over $300 million to pitch. He's not going anywhere. The manager, and people underscore this, Dave Roberts was born in Okinawa, in Japan. His dad, a marvelous man who passed away a few years ago. His dad, a black man, his mother, a Japanese woman. Great people. Great people. Know them both. Dad passed away. Just a really good guy. Really good guy. And then they've got the unlimited resource. The ownerships continue to throw money out there. Okay, let alone living in LA, which I wouldn't want to live. And this is no offense to anybody that's tuned in from LA to my program. I'm a North San Diego County boy. Okay, I don't want to live in LA. I get to about Mission Viejo and I want to turn around. Okay, but if you're Yamamoto or Ohtani, you don't have to drive around LA. You got somebody that drives you around. They can drive you to and from the ballpark. Okay, and we know Ohtani has a very Spartan existence. He may go to a Laker game or a Ram game occasionally, but pretty much from home to the ballpark, back to home. And now that he's married, maybe he'll go out to dinner once in a while. But I wouldn't want to live in LA. But at the end of the day, this young man is coming from Japan, highly populated country. He's probably used to big crowds. Even though he's 23 years of age, and they said they wanted a soft landing spot, maybe in a place where he wouldn't, garner a lot of attention. Well, you go in the second biggest media market in the world. But he's got a support system, got a good support system with a couple of great Japanese players already. So, and then you take a look at the Padres. What do the Padres really have to offer? And I realized that everybody was kind of in the same boat as far as salary. But when you really break it down, what did the Padres have to offer that the Dodgers couldn't trump? I gave you some right there of what the Dodgers were all about. I mean, the Padres' big chip was Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish is not going to pitch here forever. He may be here, maybe 2, maybe 3 at the most. But again, he's going to go away. And then who's going to be a confidant of Roki Sasaki? Up there, he's got Yamamoto, who's a little bit younger than Otani at 26. Otani's what, 30, going on 31? So you had Yu Darvish, you got a general manager and AJ Preller who learned Japanese, and congratulations to him on that. And then you got Ruben Abel, a top flight pitching coach. So I mean that's really what the Padres had to offer. Okay, that's what I'm looking at right now. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's what I got. I mean, most of it was off the field. Yu Darvish, the general manager, speaks Japanese, and Ruben Abel, a top flight pitching coach. You know, you got an aging ball club. You don't have a left fielder. You really don't have a true starting catcher. I mean, Martin Maldonado's a great catcher, but, you know, he needs a tennis racket to hit with. You know, there's questions about Bogarts being able to play shortstop. You know, congratulations, by the way, to Jay Cronenworth. He got married over the weekend, married a beautiful lady, and wish them the very, very best. But this was all done. And the biggest thing with the Padres right now, if you're Sasaki, why do you want to come to the Padres when you don't even know if you do sign with them, the people that are signing you, will they be here next year, the following year, or be here when you become a free agent in 6 years? I mean, we don't really know who's running the Padres right now. We know it's supposed to be John Seidler, but he hasn't been approved yet by Major League Baseball. Eric Hatzenda technically is still the team chairman. Steele Seidler trying to get control. We don't even know what's going on. Who's running the show? Who's allowing AJ Preller to make moves? You know what the Padres so far this year, what they've spent in free agency? Zero. They've spent absolutely $0 in free agency. And you know what? They're not alone. There's other teams that haven't spent money in free agency. But I don't care about other teams. I don't care about the Dodgers. We worry way too much about the Dodgers. Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, Dodgers may win 120 stinking games. They may win 120 games this year. They can probably win as many as they want to win. But they're going to gear up for the postseason. That's why they're going to go to a 6-man rotation. They got a bunch of guys in their rotation, folks, that are coming off of injuries. And we could go up and down the roster, and we'll get to that at some point. But they got a bunch of guys coming back from arm problems, significant arm problems. I mean, they're going to go to a 6-man rotation, but I guarantee you 4 of the 6 are coming off of some type of injury. And a couple of them coming off of Tommy John. They haven't even signed Clayton Kershaw yet. But I'm telling you right now, they can win 120 games. And the Padres aren't going to even be in contention for the division title. As good as Arizona is, and Arizona's pretty damn good, they're not going to probably contend for the division title. I would think the Dodgers are going to win the division by at least 10 games. That doesn't mean you can't be the wild card. How many wild cards have won a World Series? We still got a good ball club. Even though we need a left fielder and a better catcher. But here's the deal, folks. I don't know where ownership is, if they're going to give AJ the green light to get out there and really get after it. Now, there's some guys out there, and we'll talk about a couple of guys here in a minute. But Sasaki's done. He's a Dodger, onward and upward. Okay, then to make matters worse, on Sunday I wake up, and I know they've been negotiating with him. I don't know what the hell Boston's doing, but the Dodgers signed our buddy Tanner Scott to a 4-year, $72 million deal. Tanner Scott was damn good last year. He was probably a little bit better for the Marlins than he was for the Padres, but at the end of the day, how about in 72 innings, a 1.75 ERA, and you go back to the playoffs for the Padres, he pitched 5 innings, had 7 strikeouts, didn't give up a run. I mean, Dodgers, that bullpen is sick. I mean, they got Evan Phillips, they got Michael Kopech, they'll have Alex Vesey. I know they're trying to work a deal out with him, a little arbitration issue there. They could be headed to arbitration. But Blake Trinan, they re-signed. I mean, that bullpen is sick. Ryan Brazier, who's pretty damn good. Anthony Bonda, who pitched well for him last year. I mean, that is sick. Their bullpen is ridiculous now. I mean, you think about Kopech, the way he comes out throwing 100 miles an hour, and Blake Trinan's got that frisbee ball he throws up there. And Evan Phillips has got that great slider. Tanner Scott got the heater. And apparently, Tanner Scott and Evan Phillips were like big buddy, like best friends. And that's one of the reasons they were able to get that deal done. I have no idea what Boston was doing. In fact, I don't have an idea what a lot of teams are doing right now. I don't know if they're putting money in their pocket or they just don't want to overpay. I mean, everybody's getting overpaid. There's no question about that. But Dodgers signed Tanner Scott. Now, here's the deal, folks. Like I said a minute ago, you can't worry about the Dodgers. Let's worry about our own ball club. Let's worry about building our farm system, developing players, and putting the best product out there we can. Let's get to the playoffs. And with the expanded playoffs that started a couple of years, it's very doable. It's very doable. The big thing is your margin for error is a lot slimmer when you don't have a lot of depth in your farm system. And the Padres don't have any depth. They've got no fat right now. From a simple standpoint, somebody goes down, where are they going to get help? You're going to have to go down and get some guy hitting 260 in AAA in a hitter-friendly league. Not going to work at the big league level. Got to develop players. And we got to start developing our players and keep our players. Now that we don't have Peter Seidler around to throw out a ton of money, man, this thing's gone backwards in a hurry. It's really gone backwards in a hurry. And I don't know how they're going to get the payroll down. I mean, it's going to be over 200 million. I've been saying that for a long time. It's going to be over 200 million. I mean, you still need a left fielder, a catcher, a couple of pitchers, some depth in bullpens. Are you going to trade a Raj? You're going to trade Seeks? You're going to trade, whoever. I mean, there's talk about trading Robert Suarez. Well, maybe you got somebody that can come in and take over for Robert Suarez. But he's pretty doggone good. And what's he making? 10 million? It's not like breaking the bank, I wouldn't think. Not for good closers in this day and age. But we worry too much about the Dodgers. And the only thing that I dislike about the new schedule, I like playing the Dodgers 18 times or 19. I like playing those guys all the time. I get fired up. I want to compete against the Dodgers. But I got to worry about my own ball club. And, everybody's yelling, oh, the Dodgers are bad for baseball. The Dodgers are bad for baseball. You know what? That's a bunch of crap. I'm going to tell you why. The teams that are bad for baseball are the ones that are hanging on to their money and not investing in their ball club. Okay? Everybody talked about there should be a salary cap. Well, I also think there should be a salary floor where every team has to spend at least this much, whether it be 100 million or 125 million. These teams that are spending, 60 million or 50 million, they're kind of robbing the fans. They're taking the money and walking down to the bank and depositing it. Do something. You got to build a business. You got to build a business. You got to spend money to make money is my own philosophy. And I think it's a lot of people's philosophy. You got to spend money to make money. But I want to read something to you. I thought this was really interesting from a former general manager of the Padres, Jed Hoyer. This was this morning, Bob Nightingale. Okay, and everybody yelling and screaming about the Dodgers doing this, the Dodgers doing that. Cubs president Jed Hoyer on the mighty Dodgers. People focus on the size of their payroll and the deferments and stuff like that, but it's just a great organization that's kind of running on all cylinders. They do well in the draft. They do well internationally. They make smart trades. They do a good job finding value on the margins, and they also can sign major free agents. So I just think that focusing on the amount of money they spend does a disservice to an organization that's running at a really high level. That was Jed Hoyer, quote in a post from Bob Nightingale from USA Today. I've said for a long time, I don't care what organization you have, you've got to build a system. You got to build a farm system. You got to develop your own players. And we've seen the Padres develop a lot of players, for other organizations because they've traded them off. Some have worked out very well. Some haven't worked out very well at all. They never progressed to the big league level, or if they did, they didn't perform very well. We got to worry about our own people now. But, what else can the Dodgers do? I mentioned Clayton Kershaw. He's still out there. Where does he fit in? I mean, seriously, where does he fit in? He pitched 30 innings last year, had a 4.50 ERA. But I think he can help the ball club. And at some point in time, you're going to have to probably rest Glass now and Yamamoto, and Kershaw probably won't be ready to go at the start of the year. You bring him back. What about Kike Hernandez? He's chomping to come back. The Dodger fans want him to come back. I think that would be a very interesting sign because you're starting to get a little bit of a logjam. I'll tell you the other story out there, and I talked to a Dodger employee over the weekend through a text, and they wouldn't answer my question. I asked, is there any chance you guys could get Arenado? I responded to part of my question, but the person didn't respond to the second part of my question about Arenado. So maybe, just maybe, the Dodgers are trying to find a way to pry Arenado out from the St. Louis Cardinals. That means guys like Max Muncy could be going somewhere else. And boy, what an upgrade. Now, Muncy's got a lot of power. He gets on base, but I don't think he's a great third baseman. I think he's an adequate third baseman. You get Arenado to play third base, put him in that Dodger lineup, all of a sudden his numbers, I think, get a little bit better. He only hit 16 homers last year. He had like 272. But if they pull off Arenado, can you imagine that infield? Holy Toledo. I'm still finding it kind of interesting. They're going to play Mookie Betts at shortstop, but, we'll see how that goes. Again, I think we got to go back to our Padres right now, folks. And I have no doubt A.J. Preller can pull off a deal or two. Now, we may send some people out of town we don't want to see go out of town, but if you don't have the money and the ownership is not going to give you the money, you got to do what you can. You got to play with a left fielder. The league rule says you got to have a left fielder, and you have to have a catcher back there. And we still need two pitchers. I know we got guys in the organization that could fill out the 4 and 5 Waldron or Vasquez or Brito or, somebody else down in the minor leagues that they think's got a good arm, or take, Brian Hoeing and make him into a starter. I mean, there's things you could do to round out the rotation, but you got to get somebody. And I really think the only way the Padres are going to get anybody of real value is through a trade. That's what I think. Okay, I mean, again, it kind of comes down to ownership. I mean, you think about the ownership right now. Where are we at? I think the team will be sold. I really do. I've thought this for a long period of time. Mrs. Seidler, I don't know her real well, but I like her. I think she's a good lady. And she's got 3 young children. I know Tom Seidler, and he's a hell of a guy. I don't know the other brothers. Okay, I don't know the guys that are supposed to be taking control of the Padres. I have no idea who they are. They could knock on my front door, and I wouldn't know who they are. Tom Seidler knocks on my front door. I know exactly who he is. Good man, done a lot in our San Diego community. Sheila Seidler, I met her at a couple of different functions. Seen her at Harry's down in La Jolla one day when I was eating breakfast with Josh Stein, the assistant general manager of the Padres, a couple of years ago. Nice lady, always very congenial. Seems like the players enjoy having her around. Seem like anybody that comes into contact with her likes her. But I don't know what was in Peter Seidler's trust. And I think if we had any attorney that could look at the trust, it'd be pretty simple. I don't know if this is going to really take all that long to decide once they get it done. But, it's a tug of war right now. Whoever gets the ball club, more power to you. But I can see this ball club being sold in the next couple of years, next 3-4 years. I don't know how much they want to invest. If the Seidlers get it, meaning the brothers, then there's going to be a lot of heat on them to kind of follow in their brother's footsteps. I don't know if that's going to happen. And on the other hand, if it goes to Mrs. Seidler and she puts somebody in control, I mean, I'd have to say the same thing. Who's going to make this ball club better as far as financially? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we're at right now. We're kind of running in place. But you know what? We still got some good players. We got good enough players to make the playoffs. There's no question about that. And there's some players out there, guys that have been winners. And I think, a guy that I brought up on our show on Friday, Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo had a bad year last year with the Yankees. Remember, he broke two fingers, and then he came back in the playoffs and swung the bat really well. The great thing about Rizzo is he gives you a great quality at bat, and not only that, he'll get up on the plate, he'll get hit. His on base percentage is normally really well. I mean, he gets two strikes, man. He's going to take one on the elbow or on the thigh. We know that he's a good guy. I still think, and you know what? I have a long memory. I still think, as much as I like Anthony and respect him, he ran over Austin Hedges. Remember when he ran over Austin Hedges? If I'm managing, well, if I'm not managing, I wouldn't have told my pitcher to hit him, but I would hope my pitcher would have drilled him in the thigh the next time up. Just to send a message, you're not going to run our catcher over. But Major League Baseball called Andy Green and said, no retaliation. Well, you know what? Obviously, there was a little bit of an issue there. And the Padres didn't retaliate. Sometimes I'm a big unwritten rules guy in baseball. There's a certain way to play the game. And nobody will ever convince me that there's not a certain way to play the game. I watch the game now, and sometimes I don't even recognize it from what I grew up playing, coaching, and watching. But Anthony Rizzo, I think, would be a nice sign. You could slide Cronenworth over to second, because Bogart's probably going to be your shortstop. Move him to second. Let Rizzo play first base. And then, if Arise is still here, let him be the designated hitter. But if you trade Arise, I don't know what you'd get in return. But the guy you could sign to be the DH is JD Martinez. He's still available. He got a late start last year with the Mets. But I still think he can hit. And he's another guy that'll give you a good quality at bat. Those are a couple of veteran guys out there that have been in postseason play, been a part of, really, really good ball clubs. And they know how to win and they know how to produce. And I think Rizzo is still young enough to, 35 years of age, he can still bounce back and have a good year, getting that hand all squared away. All right. So that's a lot of baseball. If you've got comments, I think we need to quit worrying about the Dodgers. Let's worry about the Padres. We need to worry about our own roster right now. Okay, and we'll take your questions. You got questions or comments? Love to hear from you. Okay, college basketball. Well, I can tell you this is going to be a quick segment. Not a good weekend on the hardwood for any of the Division I programs. Aztecs looked terrible. In fact, I don't say this very often about the Aztecs. They got beat by UNLV at Vieja 76-68. They didn't look very prepared. And I don't necessarily think that was a coaching situation. I think that comes down to the players. They looked helter-skelter the other night. UNLV played great. I mean, UNLV shot the ball pretty well. They got to the line 19 times and knocked down 16. They shot, just under 44%. They were only 30% on threes, but I thought they played really well. They killed the Aztecs on the offensive glass. Aztecs shot 40%, 9 of 28 on threes, 11 of 16 on free throws. I just thought the Running Rebels flat out played better. It was that simple. Aztecs had no flow on offense. Didon Thomas, who's probably the best player on the court and maybe the best player in the conference. He's a great player, the point guard. This guy came out of high school a year early, was fantastic last year, and is even better this year. He ended up with 19 points. Didn't have a great shooting night. He was 4 of 13, but he's a really good player. Left-handed player, man, smooth. I saw him hit a key shot earlier in the week, last week against Utah State. Remember, they beat Utah State over at Thomas and Mack. Gave Utah State only their second loss of the year and their first loss in conference. Miles Bird, he had 21 points, but they were all in the second half. He was 0 for 7 shooting in the first half, and Aztecs badly out-rebounded, 37-32, and they got, like I mentioned, they got killed on the glass. So the Aztecs now 11-5, 4-3 in Mountain West Conference play. I know there was an article in the paper. They stumble again, and they probably will. They still got a lot of teams to play. And they got this week. They got Air Force on Wednesday. Then they go up Saturday and play in Nevada. Nevada's not great, but Nevada can beat them. But we'll wait and see. But you know what? The way I'm watching this right now, Aztecs will probably end up having to win the Mountain West Conference tourney. Maybe if they make a run, they can get in a large berth, but they probably going to have to make, I think, a tourney, a championship to get to the NCAA tournament right now. And there's talent on this team, but a lot of it's very, very young. Okay, UC San Diego, they're 15-4 and 5-2. They got beat Saturday night, 85-81 up at UC Riverside. UC Riverside, pretty damn good, and they've got a great guard, a guy by the name of Barrington Hargris. He went for 40 points. He had 25 in the first half, and he went for a total of 40. UCSD's Aniwa Tate Jones, a great forward out of New Zealand. He had 32 points. But once again, Tyler McGuy, the great three-point shooter for the Triton, had a rough night. I mean, 0 for 9 on threes. He was 2 of 15. He ended up with 4 points. It's kind of weird. He had 3 points against Irvine, then exploded for 26 points in the next game, and then the other night he's held to 4. So the Tritons now on the year 15-4, 5-2 in the Big West. They've got 2 home games this week. Thursday night, Lion Tree Arena at 7 o'clock against UC Santa Barbara, and Saturday at Lion Tree, also at 7 o'clock against CSUN. They got a really good team, the Tritons. They stubbed their toe against Riverside. Riverside's pretty good. And then USD, their struggles continue. They're 4-16. 1-6 in conference play. Saturday night at Gersten Pavilion up in LA. They got beat by Loyola Marymount 77-70. The young freshman out of Carlsbad High School, Tony Duckett, set a USD freshman record. He had 31 points and 5 rebounds. 31 points. I saw Tony Duckett play a year ago at Carlsbad. He's one heck of a player. Hopefully, Coach Lavin will be able to keep him in the fold. Okay, let's get to a little NFL football here. Okay, I was a little under the weather over the weekend, fighting a cold, and didn't want to go out, and just kind of stayed around. And man, I'll tell you what, I was treated some damn good football. I mean, that first game on Saturday, the AFC divisional game, it was a tight game for a long period of time, but Kansas City, they pulled away. They won at 23-14. They didn't have a great game. They had 212 total yards compared to 336 total yards for C.J. Stroud in the offense of the Texans. But the bottom line, Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. The guy gets it done. Nobody ever covers that guy. I mean, how can you not cover that guy? Number 87, he's been in the league forever. He had 97 catches this year, and everybody was complaining, well, he's not really doing that much. Yeah, I know his average was down, but he had 3 touchdowns, but still caught 97 balls. And the other day was fantastic. Mahomes, a very mediocre day, 16-25, 177 yards, a touchdown. Didn't turn it over, though. I love C.J. Stroud, kid out of Rancho Cucamonga, 19-28, 245-yard, good player. But the Chiefs now move on. And then Saturday night, I like the Washington Commanders. I didn't think they could beat Detroit in Detroit, but they went in there. Dan Quinn's team played great. They won the game 45-31. Jaden Daniels, what a special rookie. Man, guy's amazing. Threw for 299 yards the other night. Also carried the ball 16 times for 51 yards. Fantastic. Former Charger Austin Eckler. I like this guy. I think he's a good guy. 6 carries, 47 yards, 4 catches, 41 yards. A big part of that offense. And Jared Goff had a rough game. Threw 3 interceptions, lost a fumble, threw for 313 yards, but couldn't get the job done. So that was on Saturday. Then, yesterday, the game I was really looking forward to was the night game. And I'll tell you about that in a minute because I'm a big Derrick Henry fan. Love Derrick Henry. But my 2 favorite NFL players played yesterday. And I will tell you this, I was rooting for the Rams. But my second favorite NFL player, and I don't know why, I think because this guy got beat up so bad. when he was up for being drafted out of Oklahoma, and that was Jalen Hurts, and he's proved everybody wrong. But Jalen Hurts yesterday got hurt, hampered by a knee problem that he suffered, I think, somewhere in the third quarter. Only threw for 128 yards, had 7 carries for 70, had a 44-yard touchdown run. But Saquon Barkley and nobody ever talks about him being in the running for the most valuable player. I mean, if he's not going to win it this year, no running back will ever win it. And I realize yesterday's games don't count. All the votes have to be in right after the final regular season game. I think I ran for over 2,000 yards. And yesterday, he ran up and down the field, 26 carries, 205 yards, had the 62-yard touchdown run in the first quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, he busted one off for 78. And the Rams, man, they tried. And by the way, if you haven't heard, Matthew Stafford, who's got 2 years to go on his contract, said after the game, and I know after games, the last thing you want to ask a player, you're not sure about his future, believe me. At 36 years of age, the way he's playing, he'll be back. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to leave that money on the table. He's going to be a Hall of Famer now. By getting traded out of Detroit to the Rams, winning the Super Bowl and doing everything he's done the last few years, he's going to the Hall of Fame someday. But he got 2 years to go on his contract. But, I thought he played well. I know that last pass was awful, but bad conditions, it may have slipped. He ended up yesterday throwing for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just came up short. But, hey, great job by Sean McVay and the Rams. I didn't expect them to get to the divisional game this year. They did a hell of a job, and he has really proven to me one hell of a football coach. And I loved all the staff, along with McVay, were wearing LA Fire Department gear yesterday. That was cool. They had LAFD on their hats or beanies or sweatshirts. Yeah, it was great. That was cool. And then the nightcap, the game I was waiting for all weekend. Buffalo edges Baltimore 27-25. Mark Andrews, who's a Pro Bowl, all-pro tight end, had a rough game. He dropped one pass earlier in the game, and then he had that pass in the fourth quarter. He caught over the middle and tried to make a move and got punched out, fumbled it, coughed it up. And then after Baltimore scores with 1:33 to go in the game, he drops the 2-point conversion. Oh, my goodness, that was unbelievable. But, hey, Lamar Jackson played well. Josh Allen didn't really do a whole lot yesterday. I mean, he threw for 127 yards. He had 20 yards rushing, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I thought a big guy that really played well yesterday was James Cook. Dalvin Cook's brother, 17 carries, 67 yards. He came up with some big runs when they needed it. But Lamar Jackson, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, threw a pick. 6 carries, 39 yards. My man Derrick Henry, 16 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Second half, Buffalo really couldn't stop Baltimore. Baltimore stopped themselves. So now we got the championship games next Sunday. And, they should be okay. At Lincoln Financial, you got number 6 Washington going against number 2 Philadelphia. Eagles won the NFC East Championship. Commanders finished second by a game. Going to be both teams know one another really well. I don't know the condition of Jalen Hurts. I think Washington got out of their game against Detroit fairly healthy. So we'll see on that. That's going to be a heck of a game. No question about it. I think right now, Philadelphia, a 5.5-point favorite this morning. And then in the second game next Sunday, you'll have the AFC Championship. And the AFC Championship, you got a rematch of the last few years. You've got the Buffalo Bills going into taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and company. I think I got to go with Mahomes. I don't think Buffalo was as good as Baltimore. Baltimore got beat yesterday. But at the end of the day, I think Baltimore would give Kansas City a much more difficult time. But we'll see. We'll see. But we'll talk more about that on Friday. By the way, on Friday, we're going to have Dylan Hernandez on from the LA Times. He was flying back from Philadelphia today. He'll join us on Friday, along with John Maffey, to talk about high school sports. And so tonight, college football. Love college football. And tonight culminates tremendous year in college football, a 12-team playoff. What'll be interesting, I think Ohio State, first of all, will win this game. I think it'll be close for a while, but I think the Buckeyes probably pull away in the second half. Marcus Freeman, tremendous coach. In his short time at Notre Dame, he's 33-9, done a heck of a job, and really built and rebuilt a culture. Brian Kelly walking away was a good thing for Notre Dame. I'm not a big Brian Kelly fan. He's not a very loyal guy to his assistants and to people around him. So I don't wish the man ill will, but I'm not a fan of Brian Kelly at all. Marcus Freeman's gone in there and cleaned up kind of a mess. In the short time he's been there, he's 33-9, done a great job. I know they had the one hiccup earlier this year against Northern Illinois, but he's a great coach. And by the way, a former all-conference linebacker at Ohio State. How many of you know that? Former two-time all-conference, second team Big Ten linebacker at Ohio State. So I was thinking maybe someday he'll end up being the head coach at Ohio State. You never know. But right now he's at Notre Dame going against his alma mater. And Ryan Day, who they want to constantly maul and chew up and spit out at Ohio State, you know what his record is? You know what his record is in the time he's been there? I know he hadn't won a national champion. He's 69-10. 69-10 as a head coach. He's lost 5 conference games, 4 of them to Michigan, and he lost this year to Oregon, who wasn't even a part of the Big Ten until this year. He's lost 5 conference games. He's like 46-5 in conference. And they're talking about, oh, he doesn't do this. We're going to get a new coach. The guy's 69-10. I would sign up to have a coach that's 69-10. And I know he's lost 4 straight years to Michigan, but he'd beaten Michigan too. He's just in a. The other thing that I said about Ohio State, when they play Michigan the last few years, they go in there trying not to lose rather than going in there to win. They got to change their philosophy on that. But it's going to be a good game tonight. A lot of good players. Really looking forward to it. We'll talk a little bit about it on Friday on the podcast. But again, I think Ohio State wins it. Okay, if we have any questions out there, we'll dive into those. And again, we're going to be monitoring the Padres very, very closely here the next couple of weeks. Well, O2RR, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. Super, that's means a lot to me. I don't talk about supers a whole lot, and I don't promote them, but hey, everything helps put the show on. We do have bills to pay on this show, not to me, but to other people involved. But thank you very much. It has proven time and time again, in general, many successful teams, regardless of which pro sport, draft and develop their own guys and use free agency as a supplement. Okay, now I'm gonna respond to that on my own level. And again, I'm not trying to compare Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA to indoor soccer, but I was the vice president of operations and the general manager of the Sockers for 6 years. And one of the things that was really important to me was to build our farm system, to have our backup team, kind of our JV team ready. And we were in a league and we played other teams in our league. And we wanted to, develop our own talent. In San Diego, it's a lot easier than other places. You get a lot of great guys that are trying to make the conversion from outdoor to indoor. And there's a big difference. There are a lot of really good outdoor players that come indoor, and it takes them about 1.5 years, 2 years to really learn how to play with all the idiosyncrasies of indoor soccer. And there are some outdoor players that never really can get adjusted to it. But I've said, and I told Peter Seidler this when we met a week before he hired AJ Preller, and he asked me about his organization, what I thought about the minor leagues and this and that. And I told him, I go, you need to add another minor league team to get that extra advantage, develop pitchers and hitters. And that's something he did. And I'm not saying because I suggested it that he added it, but he did. And I know Rob Manfred, the commissioner, who I'm not a big fan of, and which would retire before 2029, he wiped out 42 minor league teams a couple of years ago. And it's taken away a lot of opportunities not only for young ball players to get an opportunity to develop with innings pitched and at bats, but it's taken away a lot of opportunities for coaches, managers, fans across the country in small towns that now will not have any type of connection to professional baseball unless they can drive to a major league game or drive to a minor league game outside their area. So I got a problem with that. But the owners loved it when Manfred brought it up because it saves them money. But some organizations would probably like to add a couple, but it is what it is. But I couldn't agree with you more. You've got to draft. Number one, you got to scout. You got to have good scouts. You got to draft well, and you got to have guys down in the minor leagues that can develop players. It's that simple. This game is not as difficult as a lot of people make it. You just have to have people that know what the hell they're doing, and let's get after it. And you draft high caliber players, not just players that have, that can run fast or got a strong arm or can hit. You got to draft guys with great mental makeup. When they're 0 for 20, they're not going to cry and call mom and say, hey, mom, they're throwing the curveball. I'm coming home. You got to have guys that are going to dig deep. And baseball, like a lot of things in life, man, it can crush you. Like Tim Flannery used to tell me, man, this game will bring you to your knees. And that's very true. And I have conversations on the telephone every baseball season with players that are struggling and they don't know where to turn. So they call me and I tell them what I think. And I try to give them some tools how to get out of it. It's not easy. I mean, this game is so difficult. Joshua, do you think the Seidler brothers would dish out funds to make this team a watchable team? Joshua, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of it, I think, depends on who's running this team. We got to wait and find out how long this court situation is going to. Is it going to be an arbitration, or is it actually going to go into a court of law? If it goes into a court of law, probably going to be a lot longer. If they get to arbitration, maybe we can get something done in the next month or two, maybe even as early as before opening day. But AJ's got to get us some players. I mean, he's got to get us some players. And I think the Padre ownership would be fine. Trade Dylan Cease. That saves almost $14 million. Trade Luis Ariz. That saves another $14 million. But what are we getting in return? We got to put a Major League Ball club out on the field. Guys like Machado and Tatis and Jackson Merrill and Cronenworth and Bogart, you can't just let things crumble around those guys. You got to get them some help. You got to get them some help. So, whoever gets control of the ball club, Joshua, it's going to come down to if they're willing to invest. And if they're not willing to invest, then they need to sell the ball club. Lou V, winning is done however you need to. No other team has as many rookies of the year as the Dodgers. They do it both ways, free agency and player development. Absolutely. I'll tell you some of the organizations that I've always had a lot of I don't want to say love. Love is the wrong word, especially when it comes to the Dodgers, but a lot of respect. I guess because I was a high school and college coach and scouted professionally for a couple of organizations, I guess I'm into the drafting and developing part. And I look at the Dodgers have been developing players since before I was born. Okay. I think once upon a time, the Giants actually did a good job, but that's been a long time ago. Back in the 50s and 60s, I think the Giants did a really nice job, maybe the 70s, but things eroded there. Cardinals have always been solid. I'll tell you a team that a lot of people probably haven't paid attention to, but an organization that has developed a lot of hitters over the years, the Minnesota Twins. They've done a great job. The Atlanta Braves, especially when John Schuerholz left the Kansas City Royals and went to the Braves a number of years ago. Great scouting, drafting, developing. And there's probably some others I'm missing, but historically it's been the Dodgers, it's been the Cardinals. I think Minnesota you got to put in there. Probably you got to give Tampa Bay in most recent times a little love in that area. But no, you got to draft, develop, and then when you get close, that's when you go hit the big free agent spot. But hey, you look for players anywhere you can find them. And think about this. Did you see and I don't know the young man's name, the Dodgers signed a 6'7" right-handed pitcher out of South Sudan. They're looking all over the world. They're looking under every nook and cranny to find ball players, the Dodgers. Now, I watched this guy throw, and it doesn't look like he can hit the broadside of a barn right now. Big, tall, lanky guy comes straight over the top. Probably need to drop his arm down a little bit, and which you can do. It's tough to raise a guy's arm angle, but you can drop a guy's arm angle. This kid's 6'7". You get him over here with some great instruction. You get him into a good nutrition program at 6'7", lanky, good athletic looking body. Who knows? But the Dodgers are looking for guys everywhere. It's incredible what they're getting done. Now, again, today, huge day in America. Every year on the 20th, we celebrate the great Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, well, it doesn't always fall on the 20th, but today is Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Let's remember what Dr. King stood for. The inauguration of our 47th president, Donald J. Trump, along with his vice president, John David Vance. Tonight, we got national championship game. And remember, the Farmers Insurance Open starts on Wednesday through Saturday. Friday morning, we will have Dylan Hernandez from the LA Times on. We'll talk about what the Dodgers have been getting done. We'll take a look at what he thinks the Padres are going to do. And we'll also talk high school sports with John Maffey. Again, please, on our YouTube page, if you got comments, love to read the comments. I love to go through those. Again, you can follow me on Facebook, on X, at Coach Quintera 44. Facebook is John Quintera. And again, please subscribe and like the program. And very much appreciate you tuning in. And hopefully by Friday, folks, the Padres will have made some type of moves. I don't have any inclination, but hey, time is ticking. Remember, pitchers and catchers report on February 12th. Until Friday morning at 10 a.m., Coach John Quintera, have a great week and enjoy the national championship game and the Farmers Insurance Open. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.